Hello and welcome everybody, this is Roland Hartmann from GraphicInMotion.com and it is tutorial time again. In this tutorial I will show you how to create advanced glitch effects as you can see them here. It is a two-part tutorial. First of all we are going to create some advanced displacement maps and later on I will show you how to create the setup that you can see here with all of these cool effects going on. So let's take a quick look here at the project. So it's a very versatile setup. You can also use this for titles, for example, if you take a look here. And as I said, it's a little bit advanced. So it's not only using a simple fractal noise together with a displacement map. We will spend a little bit more time here creating these different patterns, creating really cool displacement maps, and then putting everything together to create these glitches. And we will use only expressions to drive these animations. So there is no keyframe used, and you will learn some very versatile expressions during this tutorial. So as I said, it's all displacement map driven. So depending what you put into the displacement, you can quickly create very different results. Let me just change the displacement map here and let's take a look here at the result. And you see now I've got a pretty different style of glitching. So it's quite versatile and you can create very nice looks using this technique. Before we get started in After Effects, I want to point out that I have two products that are related to this tutorial series. If you go to my website or to Gumroad, then you can check out the Urban Glitch promo. This is an After Effects slideshow template. And actually I came up with this technique, with the glitch technique, while creating this template. You can see that I used it quite extensively here. So if you are interested in this product, then you can check out my Gumroad, and as a little bonus, you will get a 50% discount. You can find the link and the discount code in the video description. Then there is also a very versatile displacement map glitch pack. So if you take a look here, we have 20 animated 4K resolution displacement maps ready to use in your product. And the same applies here. You will get 50% discount. So you can get all these 20 maps for only $5. And I think this is a pretty good deal. Saves you a lot of time. And you have 20 awesome maps ready to use in your projects. Okay, so now enough self-advertisement here. And let's jump right into After Effects and get started with the tutorial. So in After Effects, I will just create a new project from scratch. I don't need to save this one here, and I will create a new composition. And just for the sake of this tutorial, I will do it in Full HD and not 4K, because then everything works a little bit faster. So the first composition that I create, I will call my noise map. Then I create a new solid in here. And I call this my Fractal 01. And we will add, let me quickly change to standard layout here. Then I have my effects and presets right here. And then I will add my Fractal Noise effect. So I said that it's not only using a fractal noise, but actually I created these displacement maps using fractal noises, but different instances of it. So we will stack a few layers on top of each other to get a really nice and complex displacement map. So with my first base layer that I've got here, I want to create a very rough black and white and gray pattern. So let's change these fractal types here a little bit. First of all, I want to change the noise type to block, and I want to change the fractal type to smeary or swirly. I think I will start with swirly. I will reduce the complexity down quite a bit, probably to 1, and now we can play with the transform. And you can really keep in mind that whatever you do here will later have an effect on your displacement map. So if you create patterns that are more like these strokes, then the displacement will be more horizontally. If you create it the other way around, of course, it will be more vertical. So you can already start art directing your displacement. But as I said, with this first layer, my goal is just to create somehow rough and big areas. Let me increase the contrast a little bit here, take down the brightness a bit, something like that, you know? And now I want to animate this. And as I said, I will use expressions. So let me Alt-click the stopwatch of the evolution here, and let me put in a simple expression, the time expression. You're probably familiar with that one. It's just changing a value over time, multiplied by a certain amount here, and this will create a very simple expression. Well, this is not really glitchy, you know, it's way too smooth, it's kind of organic, and I want to break this a little bit by adding a second line to this expression. And actually I have to add this on top of it, and this is the so-called Pasteurized time expression. It's very useful, and whatever value I put in here, so let me show you what this does if I put in a value of 1. If I put in a value of 1, then the expression will change the value, my evolution value, 1 time a second. So this is pretty cool, but not what I want. I can increase this now, maybe something like 8. Let's take a look at that. And now you see we get a quite glitchy and even a bit erratic animation. So that's a good starting point. Maybe for now, I will just reduce this to 6. Okay. So let's say I'm happy with that, and now I will introduce a second layer. So let's duplicate this layer here, and let's call this my track mat 01. Now I will just create a second version of Fractal Noise, and then I will use this as a track mat. So let's stay with these settings here, and let's just change the transform a bit. So maybe let's make it a bit smaller on both height and width. And maybe also increase the complexity a bit, something like that, not too much. We do not need to get crazy now. I will add details later. And now I want to take down the brightness quite a bit maybe. And also I want to change the evolution random seed here, that it's not the same pattern as our Fractal Noise under it. So let's do that here. Let's take a look whether this looks good. It looks quite good, but I will make it even darker. Something like that. Let's take a look how this animates. And yes, I like it, but I want to bring back some of the bright areas, so I will add a levels effect here. Let's put in a levels effect. Add it after our noise, and then just drag it in here, the black point, to increase the whites a bit, something like that. That should work fine. Okay. Now let's set our fractal layer here to track mat, Luma mat, and now you see what we've got. So now this track mat here is acting as a Luma mat for my fractal noise, and that way we have already 2 different layers of detail. Now there's one more thing that I want to do. I want to change the expression here a little bit so that they are animating a bit different. So I will just set this to 5 here, and I will change this value maybe to 200, that we have a bit of variation in here. Let me create a quick run preview, and you see now this is looking already quite glitchy and quite nice. Good. So this is our base. Let's select both of these layers, Ctrl D, create a new duplicate, and change the color that we see that these 2 belong together, and I will quickly rename this to fractal number 2. Now I will solo my fractal number 2 layer and turn off the track mat for a moment, that I can see what I'm doing here. Now I want to add some details. So first of all, maybe we change from swirly to smeary just for now. And now I will bring back my brightness and my contrast a bit, that I see what I'm doing here. I will also turn up the complexity maybe to 2 and transform, put this a little bit smaller. As I said, now I want to add a few details here, something like that maybe. And now take down the brightness, increase the contrast. Okay, maybe I will go even smaller in the width, create a few of these patterns. Looks not too bad. And now I will add levels here again. So let's drag over levels. Let's bring this down. Something like that. Okay. Now let's turn on our track mat for a moment, and let's solo that one so that we can work on this one. And so first of all, I also want to change the evolution random seed here, of course, that we have a different map. And I want to increase the complexity even further, take down the brightness quite a bit, and just create a few here. So not that many bright areas, you know. Something like that. should be fine. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Okay. Now unsolo this and set our fractal 2 again to Luma Matte, and now they will blend together. If I set this to add, I can increase this blending a bit. Let's take a look what we've got now. So you see that we have introduced a second level of detail. Actually, I think it's not detailed enough, so I will just reduce the size even further, maybe bring in the brightness a bit. Yeah, that looks quite nice. Now we have already a quite nice complex pattern. Good, I will do one more instance here. So let's Control D, duplicate this and colorize them again. And again, solo this one, turn off the Luma Matte for now and work on this a little bit. Now I want to do these strokes, so I can change, first of all, again, the random seed here a bit. Then I will change the transform. And let's make this quite wide and very small in the height. So something like maybe, yeah, very small, 7 is good. Now we'll reduce the brightness quite a bit, that I get these lines here. Let me take a look at this. That looks quite nice. I could also introduce, for example, some offset here. So you could put in here something like, I don't know, a linear expression, for example. Let's do that. Let's take interpolation, linear. We will just use this one here with time, and then we just put in value number 1 as 0 and value number 2, let's say 12,000 or whatever. And of course I have to specify this now to my vector here. So let's say this is the X evolution or X position, and let's create this vector here, X and value 1. Now if 1 parenthesis too much, and this should work. So now it is, oh yeah, it doesn't work because I forgot to put in a time interval. So let's say from 0 to 20 seconds, it will now change this value between 0 and 12,000. So let's take a look what this does. And this creates this nice flowing animation. Can be interesting. It's not really necessary, but it's just a little technique that I show you here. And actually we can do this a little bit different. So let me quickly get rid of this because I want to pasteurize it. And to pasteurize it, I have to put the vector in here. So let's put in here a vector of 0 and 0, doesn't really matter. And let's put a vector in here of 12,000. Let's make it just 10,000 is enough. And 0. Okay, now we can get rid of this here. Now we have a vector, and now I can put in a pasteurize here on top, pasteurize time, and set it also to something like 7 probably. And this should now work. And we have now this pasteurized expression here. So it's a little bit stop motion. So let's reduce this down to maybe 4. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think that this is better. So now we have some interesting evolution going on here. Nice. Let's unsolo this and let's activate the track matte for a moment. Now I want to change a few settings in here. So I will change the transform. We'll make it a bit bigger and also a bit brighter. And I also want to change the evolution options here. So let's change this a bit. Let's take a look what we have got. We have these patterns. Doesn't look too bad. Maybe I will scale them down a bit to create finer details here. Let's take a look. Okay. So let's set our Fractal 2 or Fractal 3 to Luma Matte, and let's take a look what we have got now. So this is our basic matte that we have created, and actually it's not too bad. The only thing that I do not like is I think we do not have enough of these strokes. So I will come in here and increase the brightness of this and increase the complexity also. Bring up the contrast here, maybe decrease the brightness again a bit, just to get in a few more strokes to create a more interesting displacement map. Okay, so for now, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm happy, but I think that you already got the basic technique behind this. You can, of course, also add other instances of fractal noise directly to these layers. You know, I just splitted them because I wanted to control the distribution with these with these track mats. But I will show you this quickly. You can just duplicate this, for example, on layer number 3. Come in here now and change the random seed and change the transform a bit to make these small details here, you know, just like these small, very small. Then we have to change the transform mode to add so that they blend into each other. And you see that this way you can also just add more details to your track mat without adding layers to your project. So you see now I introduced a few more details, and actually I will just leave these in here. I think that this is pretty good. Okay, now we have already a very complex mat. So let's take a quick run preview, and you see that it's very glitchy. And let me do one more thing to make this even better. I will just press EE to reveal all of my expressions. And now I want to mix these Pasteurized things a little bit. So as I did before, I will just change these numbers a little bit, you know, just that we have some variation in here. And also maybe this one, you know, change this a bit, that they move at different speeds and different Pasteurized values. So here we have again one to change. So we put this to 280 and this to 6.5 or 6.6. Okay, so I think I made a mistake here. Let me quickly correct this. Yes, 6.6. And this is 205. Okay, let's change this a bit just to create some randomness. Okay, let's say this is nice. Let's take a quick run preview. And you see now it's not animating in the same rhythm. It is very random and quite glitchy. Okay, so before we are trying this out as a displacement map, I will add a few more details, and I will show you 2 more tricks that I use to create this complex displacements. First of all, you can introduce some blur. So I will just create a new adjustment layer and put it on top of my 2 bottom layers here. I will call this blur. And I can simply use a Gaussian blur here. It doesn't really matter what kind of blur you use. Gaussian blur is pretty fast. And also you have the option to just set a horizontal blur, which I like. And now if I blur this, you can see what I'm doing here. I get these nice gradients, and gradients are sometimes quite interesting when using with displacement because they are creating this kind of an organic bend. I will show you this in a moment when I use this map. So if you want this strictly blocky displacement, then do not use any gradients. But if you want to have a little bit of organic displacement in there and a little bit of bending, then it's quite cool to use these blurs here. And now I want to introduce or add another adjustment layer. And with this adjustment layer, I will put it on top of all of my layers. I will call this my noise. And I will add a noise effect to this layer. Just a simple noise effect. Let's turn this up quite high, maybe 60%, and turn off use noise color. So now I have this black and white noise. But of course I do not want to have noise all over the place here. I want to restrict it to certain areas. So what I can do, I can use, for example, this mat here, track mat number 2, create a duplicate of it, and now set my adjustment layer to Luma mat. Let's just select both of these and let's make them the same color that we know they belong together. And I will come in here now and change the evolution option, so the random seed. And now you see what we've got. In some areas now, from time to time, this noise is happening. I will increase this intensity even more, 75. Yep. And this will also have a nice effect when we use this as a displacement map. Okay, so far so good. Now let's do one more thing here. I will pre-compose this now, so I will just drag my noise map into a new composition, this icon here, and then I will call it my displacement map, because this will actually be my final displacement map composition. And now I want to apply another effect, and this effect is called AE Pixel Sorter. Unfortunately, this effect is not included in After Effects. It's a third-party plugin. You can get it on AE Scripts. And it's really cool. So if you want to create these glitches, or if you want to displace your footage directly, therefore a pixel sorter is really cool. Maybe you already heard it. And I just used it to add a few more details that would be different to achieve without this plugin. So if you take a look here, for example, at this area, if I turn this now off, this is how my map would look without it. So you can get away with that, no problem. You know, you can use this map as it is and you will get some nice results. But if you add this pixel sorter, then you just will get this bit more details. And I think that this makes a difference when we use this later on as a displacement map. So let me show you a few simple settings. I will not go through this whole plugin. It's very complex. You can do a lot of stuff with it. I will just show you the values that I use to create these maps. So the first value that you have that is interesting is the angle. So you can change the angle here, and this way you can also bring in a new dimension to your maps. Creating these vertical glitches here can be very interesting. If you take a look here, what's happening here. So this will get you crazy displacement results if you use it like that. So it's really, really cool. In my case, I just want to stay with the 90 degrees orientation so that everything is horizontal. Then a very important setting is the threshold. If I turn this to 0, then you see what this will create. It's also very interesting. I mean, this is nearly art, you know. I would print it and then put it up on my wall in the studio. Really cool. But of course, I don't want to use it like that. So the higher you set this, the less artifacts you will get. So find a middle here. And for this example, I will probably stay somewhere in the middle around here. That's fine. Then you have the block size. That could be interesting. And you can make it very blocky by increasing this. And you can make it quite small and thin. Okay, I didn't see that well because I didn't put in any offset here. So if you introduce some offset and some random offset, these are very interesting settings. And now you change the block size. We see this maybe a bit better. And actually right here we don't see it well what this does. Yeah, doesn't matter. I will just leave that on a small setting. I will offset it a bit and I will change the random offset, but not that high, just a little bit. Okay, so this is basically all I did with this plugin to increase the quality or to increase the complexity of my maps. Yeah, here I can show you the block size. Take a look at this one here. If I make this bigger, then you see what the block size does. Then it creates these big blocks here. Also a very cool effect. You know, this can have a very nice effect on your displacement map. So maybe we will even increase this a bit, you know, to create these really nice patterns. So as I said, if you do not want to spend the few dollars for this plugin, then you can either buy my pack for $5 or you can just use it without it. It's no problem. It will also work quite well. But yeah, I just wanted to add some details here. Okay, so now my displacement map is more or less finished. What I could do, there is one more option. If you want to introduce really, really cool glitches, you could animate this between -100 and 100. This will give us one more layer of glitching. So let's do that. And while doing that, I can show you a very interesting technique, a very interesting expression that is very useful when you create glitches. So I did not write this myself. I know a little bit about expressions, but this one is from Dan Abbott's. You're probably familiar with this guy. He's awesome. So check out his website, motionscripts.com, and there I found these random motions, and here this flickering light expression was exactly what I was searching for when I created this technique. And if you apply this here, let me take a quick look. So let's apply this expression. And by the way, I will also share this expression in the video description. So check out the video description. There's a lot of cool stuff down there. And now let's just apply it to the length. So let's alt click the length and let's put it in here. And let's do one change here. So the change that I want to make is actually, I will explain this expression in a moment, but let me just make this change. Instead of just setting it to random 100, I want to set it to random -100, 100, comma 100. So now it will create a random value between minus 100 and 100. This makes sense because this is actually the limit of this slider here. But it's very difficult to see what this expression really does because, of course, our displacement map is already quite erratic and quite glitchy and a lot is going on, so you may not be able to see it. But I can show you this quite well in the graph editor. So let's take a look here at the graph editor. Let's open it up and let's activate this small icon to see the expression. And now you see what it is doing. So it is randomly changing a value in certain intervals. And you can specify these intervals right here. Here you have the seg min and the seg max, and the seg min and the seg max are more or less the breaks in between the flickering. Then you have the flicker duration min and the flicker duration max. So this specifies how long the flickering will take place. And these are the values that you can change. And let's change this a little bit. So let's say I want the minimum segment to be a little bit shorter, so 0.6 here. And I want the maximum segment to be 1 second. And now I will just set this to 0.4 and 0.5. Or 0.3 is also nice. Just they should not be longer than the intervals because then, yeah, you will mess it up. If we take a look what this does now, you see now I get quite short intervals, which probably makes sense in case of my displacement map here. And now I have a really cool flickering and displacement here all over the place. So this expression here, to be honest, is not really necessary. We will use it later on extensively, but I just wanted to introduce it already at this point of the tutorial so that you see what we're going to use here. Okay, so as last step in part number 1, I will just create a quick run preview of my displacement map and I will be right back when it's finished. Okay, so I got a bit of a RAM preview of my displacement map, and actually I'm quite satisfied. There's only one thing that disturbs me a little bit, and this is my base layer. So let me quickly jump right back into it and correct it a bit. I think that these areas here are just way too, a little bit too bright. So let's go back to our setup, to our noise map quickly, and let's change this a little bit. So let me quickly rearrange this a bit. So I think that I just added a bit too much here. So I will just pull this down. So I will pull the brightness down a bit. And maybe I will also add a bit detail here already on this stage. Pull this down even further, up the contrast a bit. Just to make this a little bit more, like that. I think this could be quite nice. Yes, good. And I want to decrease the blur a little bit, just something like that. Okay, so let's check that together with our pixel sorter, and I think that this looks really nice now. Actually, let me turn down the threshold here even further to get more artifacts. Artifacts are always good in displacement, in my opinion. Okay, so this is the end of part 1 of this tutorial. In the next part, I will show you how we will use this displacement map to create cool glitch effects. Meanwhile, I will just export my displacement map, and I really hope to see you in the next video.